In 2024, a handwritten letter discovered in a Swiss bank vault changed everything we thought we knew about Marilyn Monroe's death. The 3 words she wrote in that letter weren't just shocking, they completely destroyed the suicide theory that had stood for 6 decades. But here's the most chilling part: the letter wasn't meant to be found until now. She had planned for this moment, planned for someone to discover the truth exactly 62 years after her death. I'll reveal those 3 devastating words at the 16-minute mark, but first you need to understand why she wrote this letter at all. Because what drove Marilyn to hide her deepest secret for 6 decades wasn't fear, it was love. March 15, 2024, Geneva, Switzerland. Bank vault number 247A hadn't been opened since August 1962. The safety deposit box belonged to someone listed only as N.J. Baker, a name that meant nothing to the Swiss banking officials until they discovered what was inside. But here's what you don't know yet. This wasn't just any letter. This was Marilyn's insurance policy, her final message to the world, timed to surface exactly when all the people who could be hurt by the truth would be long gone. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever written something so painful, so dangerous that you knew it could only be shared after you were gone? Something that contained truth so explosive it could destroy lives, ruin reputations, shatter families? That's exactly what Marilyn Monroe did in the summer of 1962. And what she wrote wasn't just about herself. It was about someone she loved so much that she chose to die rather than expose their secret. The discovery happened almost by accident. Dr. Elena Hoffman, a Swiss banking investigator, was conducting routine audits of dormant accounts when she noticed the unusual rental agreement for Vault 247A. The box had been paid for in advance, not for years but for decades. Someone had deposited enough money in 1962 to keep that vault sealed until 2024. Someone who knew exactly when they wanted their secret revealed. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Hoffman later told reporters. The rental agreement was specific down to the exact date, not just the year, the exact day, March 15, 2024. Someone had planned this moment 62 years in advance, but the really shocking part wasn't the timing, it was what they found inside the vault. Along with the letter were photographs, documents, and evidence that proved Marilyn Monroe hadn't just been Hollywood's biggest star, she'd been protecting one of the 20th century's most dangerous secrets. A secret that could have changed the course of American history if it had been revealed in 1962. The letter itself was written on pink stationery, Marilyn's favorite color, in her distinctive handwriting. But this wasn't the bubbly, childish script that people associated with her public persona. This was the careful, measured writing of someone documenting the most important truth of her life. Someone who knew she might not survive to tell it herself. "My dearest future self," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then I am gone, and enough time has passed that the truth can finally be told without destroying the people I love. What I am about to write will shock you, but please understand, everything I did for love. Love. That's what this whole story is really about. Not the Hollywood glamour, not the political conspiracies, not the scandals that everyone focuses on. This letter revealed that at the heart of Marilyn Monroe's final months was a love so deep, so impossible, that she was willing to take it to her grave. But let me back up, because to understand what was in that letter, you need to know how it was discovered and why its contents were so carefully hidden for 6 decades. The vault hadn't just been rented by Marilyn, it had been arranged through a complex web of lawyers, banks, and trust funds, designed to ensure that the letter would only surface when everyone involved in the original story was dead. Hoffman's investigation revealed that the vault rental had been paid for through a Swiss trust established by someone using the pseudonym Norma Baker. But the money hadn't come from Marilyn's estate, it had come from someone else. Someone powerful enough to move money internationally, someone wealthy enough to pay for 60 years of storage, someone who shared Marilyn's secret and her desire to protect it. When Dr. Hoffman finally opened the vault, she found more than just a letter. There were photographs that had never been seen publicly, documents that proved connections between Marilyn and political figures that historians had only guessed at, and evidence of a relationship that, if revealed in 1962, could have brought down the American government. "The first thing that struck me," Dr. Hoffman said, "was how carefully everything had been preserved. This wasn't someone hiding evidence in a panic. This was someone methodically documenting truth with the precision of a historian, someone who understood that this information was too important to be lost forever." The letter ran to 17 pages. 17 pages of Marilyn's most intimate thoughts, her deepest fears, her greatest love, and her final secret. But it was the opening paragraph that set the tone for everything that followed. "I know what people will say about me after I'm gone. They'll say I was troubled, that I couldn't handle fame, that I was destroyed by my own success. Let them say those things. It's easier than the truth. The truth is that I am dying for love, not the desperate, clinging love of someone who can't bear to be alone, but the selfless love of someone who would rather sacrifice herself than see the person she loves destroyed. Selfless love. Think about that phrase for a moment.
How many people do you know who would die to protect someone else's secret? How many people would choose death over betrayal, silence over vindication? That's what Marilyn Monroe did, according to this letter. She didn't die because she was weak or troubled or unable to cope. She died because she loved someone so much that their safety mattered more than her own life. But who was she protecting? The letter doesn't reveal that immediately. Instead, it takes the reader on a journey through Marilyn's final months, painting a picture of a woman trapped between impossible choices. A woman who had discovered something that put someone she loved in mortal danger, and who had to decide between exposing the truth or protecting the person who meant everything to her. You know about Jack, the letter continued, referring to President Kennedy. Everyone will eventually know about Jack. That relationship was real, but it was also a performance. I was playing a role, and so was he. We were both trapped by expectations, by politics, by the careful dance that people in our positions have to perform. But there was someone else, someone who saw past Marilyn Monroe to Norma Jean, someone who loved me not for what I represented, but for who I really was, someone else. This was the bombshell that investigators had been waiting for. For decades, biographers and historians had focused on Marilyn's relationships with the Kennedy brothers, with Joe DiMaggio, with Arthur Miller. But this letter revealed that there had been another relationship, one so secret, so dangerous, that it had never been suspected. The letter continued. We met in places where no one would think to look for either of us. He would wear disguises. I would change my hair. We would become different people so that we could be ourselves. For a few hours at a time, I wasn't Marilyn Monroe, and he wasn't, well, I can't write his name, even now. Some secrets are too dangerous for paper. Too dangerous for paper. Even in a letter meant to be hidden for 60 years, Marilyn was still protecting this person's identity, but she left clues, subtle hints about their meetings, about the person's position, about why their relationship was so impossible. He has children, she wrote, a wife who doesn't understand him but who depends on him completely, a public life that would be destroyed if our love became known. I thought I could handle being his secret, but then I discovered something that changed everything. What did she discover? The letter becomes cryptic at this point, referring to documents and photographs and evidence of things that should never have happened. It talks about Marilyn accidentally learning something that put both her and her secret lover in danger, something that certain people would kill to keep quiet. I found them by accident, the letter explained. I was looking for something else entirely when I came across the files. At first I didn't understand what I was seeing, but gradually the truth became clear. What I had discovered could destroy not just him but dozens of innocent people. Families would be ruined, careers would end, lives would be lost. The files. Throughout the letter, Marilyn refers to these mysterious files that she had discovered, files that contained evidence of something so damaging that their existence put her life in danger. But she doesn't specify what the files contained, only that they proved connections between powerful people and activities that could never be made public.
But here's where the letter takes an unexpected turn. Instead of threatening to expose these files, instead of using them as leverage or blackmail, Marilyn made a different choice. She decided to destroy the evidence and herself along with it. I could have used what I found to protect myself, she wrote. I could have threatened to expose everything unless they left me alone, but that would have destroyed him too, and I would rather die than be responsible for ruining the only person who ever really loved me. Rather die than be responsible. Those words appear multiple times throughout the letter. Marilyn wasn't suicidal in the traditional sense. She wasn't depressed or hopeless or unable to cope with life. She was making a calculated sacrifice, choosing to die to protect someone else's life and reputation. But the letter reveals that her death wasn't as simple as an overdose. It wasn't even suicide in the way people understand the term. It was something more complex, more tragic, and more heroic than anyone had imagined. We made the plan together, she wrote. He didn't want me to do it, but he understood that there was no other way. The people who wanted those files would never stop hunting for them as long as I was alive. They would torture me, threaten me, hurt the people I cared about. But if I was gone and if the files disappeared with me, then everyone would be safe. They made the plan together. This revelation shattered every theory about Marilyn's death. She hadn't died alone and desperate. She hadn't been murdered by mysterious forces. She had planned her own death in collaboration with the person she loved, as a way to protect him and destroy evidence that could have changed history. But the letter contained one more bombshell. Hidden in the vault along with Marilyn's confession was a second letter, a letter written in a different handwriting, a letter that revealed the identity of Marilyn's secret lover and explained why their relationship had been so dangerous. Dr. Hoffman described finding this second letter. It was sealed separately, with instructions that it should only be opened after Marilyn's letter had been read completely. When I finally opened it, I understood why this secret had been so carefully guarded for 60 years. The second letter was signed simply R, but the letterhead, the handwriting, and the content made the identity clear to anyone familiar with 1960s American politics. This was a letter from Robert F. Kennedy. Not just any letter, a love letter that proved his relationship with Marilyn had been far deeper and more dangerous than anyone had suspected. "My dearest Norma," Bobby's letter began, "I know what you're planning to do, and I know I can't stop you. I also know that history will never understand the sacrifice you're making. They'll remember you as a troubled starlet who died young, never knowing that you died as a hero, protecting not just me but the future of American politics." The future of American politics. Bobby Kennedy's letter revealed that the files Marilyn had discovered weren't just embarrassing, they were treasonous. They contained evidence of connections between high-level government officials and organized crime figures that would have destroyed not just individual careers but the entire Democratic Party. "The information you found," Bobby wrote, "proves things that can never be proven publicly, connections that go to the highest levels of government, plans that were made in desperation and carried out in secret. If these files ever became public, it wouldn't just destroy me, it would destroy faith in American democracy itself, faith in American democracy." The stakes weren't just personal or political, they were existential. Marilyn had stumbled upon evidence of corruption so deep, so widespread, that its exposure could have caused a constitutional crisis, and she had chosen to die rather than be responsible for that chaos. But Bobby's letter revealed one more crucial detail. The plan for Marilyn's death hadn't been spontaneous. It had been carefully orchestrated to look like an accidental overdose, while actually being a controlled elimination of both Marilyn and the dangerous evidence she possessed. "The doctors who will examine you," Bobby wrote, "will find exactly what we want them to find. Nothing more, nothing less. The files will be destroyed in a way that leaves no trace. Your death will be tragic but explicable. And the secret that could destroy everything will die with you." The secret that could destroy everything. For 60 years, people had speculated about what Marilyn Monroe might have known that made her dangerous to powerful people. But this letter revealed that it wasn't what she knew, it was what she was willing to do with what she knew. And what she chose to do was sacrifice herself to protect the person she loved and the country she believed in. But here's the detail that changes everything we thought we knew about Marilyn Monroe's final days. According to both letters, her death wasn't just planned, it was rehearsed, multiple times. Bobby's letter refers to practice runs, and dry rehearsals, and making sure every detail was perfect. "We've been through this so many times," Bobby wrote, "that you could do it in your sleep. The timing, the dosage, the positioning, everything has to be exact. One mistake, and instead of protecting everyone, we'll expose everything." They had turned her death into a performance, the greatest performance of Marilyn Monroe's career, and the one that no one was ever supposed to know was a performance. She died not as a victim, but as an actress playing the most important role of her life. But the letters revealed one final twist. Marilyn's death wasn't just about protecting Bobby Kennedy's political career, it was about protecting a child whose existence could never be acknowledged publicly, but who would grow up safe because of his mother's ultimate sacrifice. "Our son will never know who his real father is," Marilyn wrote in the final pages of her letter. "He'll grow up thinking he's someone else's child, in a family that will love him and protect him. That's the only way he can have a normal life. That's the only way he can be safe from the people who would use him to destroy you." Marilyn Monroe and Bobby Kennedy had a child together. A child whose existence was so dangerous that Marilyn was willing to die to protect him. A child who was given a new identity and raised by a different family to keep him safe from the political enemies who would have used him as a weapon against his father. The letter revealed that this child, now a man in his 60s, was living somewhere in America, unaware of his true parentage, unaware that Marilyn Monroe was his mother and Robert Kennedy was his father, unaware that one of the most famous women in history had died to protect his anonymity. But Marilyn had left him something. Hidden in the Swiss vault, along with the letters, was a trust fund that had been growing for 60 years, money that was meant to be given to her son when he turned 65, along with the truth about his parentage. Money that came with a letter explaining why she had given him up and why she had died to protect him. Dr. Hoffman's investigation revealed that the trust fund now contained over $50 million. $50 million that had been accumulating interest for 6 decades, waiting for the right moment to be claimed. But claiming it meant accepting a truth that would change everything about this man's understanding of himself and his place in history. "I hope you can forgive me," Marilyn wrote to her son. "I hope you can understand that giving you away was the hardest thing I ever did, but also the most important. I wanted you to have a normal life, a safe life, a life free from the scandals and dangers that surrounded me. I hope I succeeded." The 3 words that changed everything about Marilyn Monroe's death weren't dramatic or shocking in the way you might expect. They weren't a revelation about murder or conspiracy or political intrigue. They were simpler than that, and more devastating. The 3 words were, "For my son." Those words appeared 17 times throughout Marilyn's letter. Every decision she made, every sacrifice she chose, every lie she told, it was all for her son. Her death wasn't the tragic end of a troubled starlet. It was the ultimate act of maternal love, the final performance of a woman who chose her child's safety over her own life.
For my son, I will disappear from history. For my son, I will let people believe I was weak and troubled. For my son, I will die so that he can live free from the burden of being Marilyn Monroe's child. But the story doesn't end there. Because in 2024, after 62 years of secrecy, Dr. Hoffman faced a dilemma. She had uncovered one of the most important historical documents of the 20th century, but she also held information that could destroy an innocent man's life. Should she reveal the truth about Marilyn Monroe's death, even if it meant exposing the identity of her secret son?
The Swiss banking authorities decided to take an unusual step. They released the portions of the letters that dealt with historical events, the relationship with Bobby Kennedy, the evidence of political corruption, the true circumstances of Marilyn's death, but they kept secret the information that could identify her son, giving him the chance to come forward voluntarily if he chose to. We believe the public has a right to know the truth about historical events, Dr. Hoffman explained. But we also believe that innocent people have a right to privacy. If this man wants to claim his inheritance and acknowledge his parentage, that's his choice, but we won't force that choice on him. The revelation of Marilyn's letters sent shockwaves through the historical community. Biographers scrambled to revise their books. Historians debated the implications for our understanding of 1960s politics. Conspiracy theorists found validation for theories they'd been promoting for decades. But perhaps the most important impact was on our understanding of Marilyn Monroe herself. The letters revealed a woman who was far more complex, far more intelligent, and far more heroic than the public had ever imagined. She wasn't a victim of the Hollywood system or a casualty of American politics. She was a mother who made the ultimate sacrifice to protect her child. These letters change everything, said Dr. Patricia Williams, a historian specializing in 1960s American culture. They show us a Marilyn Monroe who was in complete control of her own destiny, who understood the consequences of her choices, and who chose love over self-preservation. That's not the story of a tragic figure. That's the story of a hero. The letters also revealed details about the political corruption that Marilyn had discovered. While the specific documents she found were destroyed along with her, her descriptions in the letter provided enough information for modern investigators to piece together some of the connections she had uncovered. The files apparently contained evidence of money laundering between the Kennedy administration and organized crime figures, documentation of planned assassinations of foreign leaders, and proof of surveillance programs that violated constitutional rights, information that in 1962 could have ended careers and destroyed lives, but that by 2024 was historical rather than contemporary. What Marilyn discovered, explained Dr. Williams, was essentially a preview of everything that would come out during Watergate, Iran-Contra, and other political scandals of the following decades. She was ahead of her time in recognizing the connections between politics and organized crime, but the most poignant aspect of the letters was Marilyn's hope that her son would understand her choices. Throughout both her letter and Bobby's response, there's a constant concern for this child who would grow up without knowing his true parents. "I pray that he becomes a good man," Marilyn wrote. "I pray that the family raising him teaches him kindness and strength and the importance of standing up for what's right. I pray that he never has to make the kinds of impossible choices that destroyed his parents." The impossible choices that destroyed his parents. Bobby Kennedy's assassination in 1968 was officially attributed to political extremism, but the letters suggest it may have been connected to the same forces that threatened Marilyn. People who suspected that the dangerous files hadn't been completely destroyed, who worried that Bobby might someday reveal the truth about what had happened. "They got me too," Bobby had written in a final note added to his letter just days before his death. "But our son is safe. That's what matters. Marilyn's sacrifice wasn't in vain." Today, somewhere in America, a man in his 60s may be reading news reports about these letters and wondering if they're about him, wondering if the woman he thought was his mother was actually someone else, wondering if his entire life story was constructed to protect him from a truth too dangerous to acknowledge. The Swiss bank has established a confidential process for this man to come forward if he chooses. They've hired genealogists and private investigators to help verify his identity if he decides to claim his inheritance. But they've also made it clear that he's under no obligation to reveal himself publicly. This is ultimately about choice, Dr. Hoffman explained. Marilyn Monroe died to give her son the choice to live a normal life. We're not going to take that choice away from him now. The letters have also inspired new investigations into other mysterious deaths from the 1960s. If Marilyn Monroe was willing to fake her own suicide to protect political secrets, how many other accidents and suicides from that era might actually have been elaborate cover-ups? But perhaps the most important legacy of these letters is what they tell us about love, sacrifice, and the choices we make to protect the people we care about. Marilyn Monroe's story isn't just about Hollywood glamour or political intrigue. It's about a mother's love and the lengths someone will go to protect their child. "For my son," 3 words that redefine everything we thought we knew about one of the most famous women in history. 3 words that transform a tragic ending into an act of heroism. 3 words that prove that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that are never told. The secret letter discovered after 60 years doesn't just change our understanding of Marilyn Monroe's death, it changes our understanding of her life. She wasn't the fragile starlet who couldn't handle fame. She was a mother who gave up everything, including her life, to ensure that her child could grow up safe and free. That's the real secret that was hidden for 60 years. Not a political conspiracy or a Hollywood scandal, but a love story that was too dangerous to tell until everyone involved was beyond the reach of those who would use it to cause harm. Marilyn Monroe died for love, but not the kind of love that destroys, the kind of love that saves, the kind of love that puts someone else's life ahead of your own, the kind of love that ensures that somewhere in America today, a man can live a normal life because his mother was brave enough to give up everything to protect him. For my son, the 3 words that changed everything, hidden for 60 years, finally revealed when the truth could no longer hurt the innocent. The ultimate secret of Hollywood's most famous mystery, preserved until the moment when love could finally triumph over secrecy.